Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News focusing on the search for MH370. I'm Jeffrey Thomas and I'm delighted to say joined by my co-host Blaine Gibson. Hi Blaine, good afternoon.
Hi, Jeffrey. How are you? Good afternoon to you.
I'm excellent, very well, thank you. Now Blaine, we've had a host of questions from the last episode we did on the two pieces of debris that you've unveiled and given us the details of. And so we've got a lot of questions to go through, but you've got yet another piece of debris. And perhaps you could start off by giving us the details of that.
Yes, I'll be happy to do that. This is a piece of debris that is more important symbolically than officially because of who found it.
Yeah.
In December of 2016, the Malaysia 370 families made a trip to Madagascar to raise awareness for local people to be on the lookout for debris, to offer a small reward for people who find floating debris, and also to search for their debris themselves on beaches. And additionally, some background that in June I had found and handed in 6 pieces of debris to Madagascar authorities, and they were ready to hand it over to Malaysia. The Malaysian investigator wanted to go pick it up, but the bean counters, superiors, wouldn't pay for his trip. And so it sat there for 6 months. And then finally, when the Malaysia 370 families said they were going to Madagascar and asked if perhaps they could pick up the debris, the high officials at the ministry realized this would be very embarrassing if they didn't send the investigator to pick it up himself. So they finally authorized his trip. The Annex 13 investigator came, and I met the 370 families in Antananarivo, and we split up into 3 different groups to look for debris. Jiang Hui from China had lost his mother on Malaysia 370, and he came in the group that went to Riake Beach, and he was one of the first to set out to search for debris. And on, I believe it was December 6th of 2016, he came back with a piece of debris from Riake Cove that quite clearly appeared to be Malaysia 370 cabin debris. It had the brown hexagonal honeycomb. It was 3/8 inches thick. It was found on a beach in a small cove where other pieces of 370 debris had been found. And when he brought it back, he showed it to the Annex 13 investigator, who was very dedicated and a trained Boeing engineer. And he looked at it and he said it looked like Malaysia 370 cabin debris from a Boeing 777. And so this is a piece that should be added to the 43 that we have already listed. Now, there were other pieces of debris that were very similar to that, and Malaysia didn't really have too much interest in the small pieces of debris. So everyone said it was fine for Jiang Hui to take it with him as a memory of his mother, a remembrance. And also he wanted to show it to Chinese expert investigators.
Mm.
So that small piece of debris went to China. And it was really quite a story for a 370 family member to find the debris. And then he and the others were trying to piece it together with another piece of debris that had been recovered. These are small pieces of a large puzzle.
So these pieces, the two you showed us a few days ago and this piece today, and the ones you've still got to show us, these have not been logged by Richard Godfrey in his master spreadsheet. for various reasons. There are all sorts of reasons for that, um, and that they will now be logged.
They have not yet been logged. We need for people to take a look at them and
Yes,
get some good photos and get, when possible, get the debris in possession, especially of that aluminum honeycomb piece, and then decide if these should be included.
yes, yeah. So that, yeah, that's a very significant find, particularly as it's um, one of the relatives found, or this
Yeah,
gentleman found, he found a piece of debris. And he lost his mother on the flight. I mean, it's wow, that is really very touching, very heartwarming. Yeah, but that segues into a question from the Galway farmer, and he's not happy about the quality of the photos of the MH370 debris. I won't actually use his language, um, but I guess, Blaine, that's because of many reasons. First of all, some of the people taking these pictures don't have very good cameras. Some of these pictures were taken, you know, 7 or 8 years ago, and also I guess they've been transmitted in low resolution because of the quality of the internet. You know, you can't send a 10 or 20 megabyte picture when you're down to 1 bar on 3G or 1 bar on 4G. It just doesn't work, does it? Is that kind of the problem?
yes, it is. We're dealing with photos that are taken on poor cell phones. I mean, these aren't
Yeah.
rich people with expensive camera equipment. These are people who are in Madagascar, and we're trying to get to you photos
Yeah.
of possible debris early on.
Okay. So Robert Creamer, 7522, Blaine, he says, interesting question. The seat cushions and life jackets should have been quickly found after a crash that would have been of such force, hitting the water at speed is equivalent to hitting concrete, that debris volume would have been extensive. The lack of such always suggests placement of crumbs, fooling everyone. Well, I sure as hell don't agree with that. But before I chime in with my two bobs worth, what are your thoughts on that, Blaine?
Well, my thoughts on that are that the seat cushions would be floating and would be quickly found if you immediately got to the crash site with boats and with airplanes looking for the debris field. But that didn't happen. There was no aerial search of the crash site for 3 weeks, and no boats went there to the surface for a very long time, even longer. So you wouldn't see any of those seat cushions. And as far as the second one is, that's really an absurd remark. I take objection to it. Obviously, if someone were trying to place crumbs, then since you put so much importance on the seat cushions, I would think that someone who doesn't exist would place some seat cushions in there. The reason that the
Yeah.
seat cushions aren't found washed ashore is that they will deteriorate and disintegrate and get waterlogged and sink, whereas aircraft debris is resilient. So the solid composites and aluminum that float are going to float for years and be recovered if someone finds them, while the seat cushions wouldn't. So again, there's a reasonable explanation for seat cushions not being found, and your statement that it suggests that the other debris is somehow crumbs being placed by somebody, I find highly objectionable.
Yes, and viewers may not be aware, um, with Air France 447, which crashed in the Atlantic in July 2009, the aircraft was found 3 years later on the bottom in sections. It shattered as well, but large chunks of the fuselage went to the bottom. All the passengers were strapped into their seats. They were still there. I've met a gentleman who has seen the video. The video's never been released, but they sent a video, a camera down, and they filmed the interior of the plane, and the passengers were still strapped in their seats. And as such, the seat cushions can't move because they've got a passenger sitting on them who's strapped in. The life jackets are strapped securely underneath the seats. Now, possibly not understood is these seats are attached to seat rails or seat tracks, and they're designed to withstand a force of 16 Gs, which is why when the Asiana 777 crashed in San Francisco in 2012, and I'm going to be showing you a picture now of the fuselage, that aeroplane cartwheeled, and virtually everybody survived that crash because the seat tracks rated to 16G. Now, previously with air crashes, the seat tracks were only rated to 8G. And what they found is when aeroplanes crashed, the passengers weren't dying from the crash. They were dying from seats flying through the cabin, killing them. So with all newer aircraft like the 777, the force that they had to withstand was 16G. Now, the other dynamic that has to be understood about this crash is we don't precisely know how it hit the water. We know it hit the water with a hell of a force, no question about it, none whatever. However, there's two parts to an aeroplane. There's the incredibly strong steel titanium structure, and the 777 structure is one of the strongest out there. It's an immensely strong structure. It has to be, because it has to withstand pressurization in and out every day. So it's an incredibly tough structure. And that's one part of it. The other part are all the fairings. Now, where the wing meets the fuselage, you see a nice curved aerodynamic fairing. Now, that fairing is made of lightweight composite, honeycomb, fiberglass, other exotic materials. And when an aeroplane crashes, that's the stuff that shatters, like the cowlings around the engine. Again, very lightweight, it floats, they shatter. The tailplane. So anything that's non-structural on an aeroplane is incredibly light. So you're going to get a mix. You're going to get lots and lots and lots of debris, thousands and thousands of pieces of debris of the lightweight structure, and that's the stuff that floats. The larger pieces, like the engines, the undercarriage, and maybe chunks of the fuselage, will go to the bottom. But there's no doubt the fuselage broke open, none whatever, and it might be in 10 pieces. It might be in more pieces, but that's how some of the interior paneling was released. So that kind of explains why we have this mix of debris, the debris that Blaine's found that floats and there's still floating out there. Seat cushions, as Blaine said, if they were released, they'd get waterlogged and they'd sink. If there were passengers released, they would be, after a few days, waterlogged and sink as well, tragically. So does that explain it properly, Blaine, do you think? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yes, you explained it very well. Those are all very good reasons that explain why no human remains have been found, why no seat cushions have been found. Thank you.
Yeah, and just pick up on your point too, where we now believe the aircraft is, and that is within the University of Western Australia search area, which also, by the way, is the WSPR area, for those following Richard's fantastic work with WSPR. That area, as Blaine said, was not searched till the 20th of March, I think, or 28th of March. It was about 20 days after the crash, 28th of March. So, and we have mentioned this several times, and I'll show you again, two screenshots, which are NASA screenshots of the weather on the day that the plane was lost, and also about 10 days later, two cold fronts went through. And so debris would be scattered all over the place. So I hope that answers your question Robert. And Professor Org 8383, he adds, it would seem the vast majority of floatable debris is still trapped in a relatively intact fuselage. Well, maybe, maybe not. Maybe in time, as the aircraft slowly deteriorates or shifts due to some underwater tremors, we might see a plume of debris escape from the aircraft. If a sizable plume of debris rises to the surface and provides a clue to where the aircraft lays, that could be an interesting dynamic. And he adds that seems to suggest the plane remains as a large chunk or two laying somewhere on the bottom. So that kind of goes on from our explanation, but I think it's in more chunks than two or three. I think it's probably in four or five, but who knows?
Well, I agree with you, Jeffrey, and all I can add is that MH370 is not intact underwater, and the fuselage is not intact underwater, unless I am too.
Yeah, and that's the, yes. Um, so Jura 014JS, I probably got that wrong. Jeffrey, and of course Anne Blaine, is it true the new search for MH370 was definitely cancelled, or is it just a rumour? So it's a question to me, and Blaine and I have actually discussed this at length. It is definitely not cancelled. Um, Ocean Infinity, the agreement reached with the Malaysians, and correct me if I'm wrong, Blaine, the agreement reached with the Malaysians in December of 2024 was a search for 18 months over two search seasons. The search season runs from November to April. Ocean Infinity did start searching in March and into April. And when the weather got a little bit gnarly, they stopped operations and went off onto another assignment. Now, bear in mind, this search ship that Ocean Infinity is using, Armada 7806, is not a very big ship. In fact, it's the smallest ship that's been used in the search for MH370 so far. Um, and so it left, and the swells were getting up, I think, 3 to 4 meters, Blaine, and it just prevents the launching and recovery of AUVs. So we expect, absolutely, and I've heard nothing to the contrary, that Ocean Infinity will be back with their operations in November, and we've heard nothing to suggest that will not be the case. That be your understanding, Blaine?
Yes, absolutely correct. The search will resume, Ocean Infinity search, towards the end of this year for the austral summer.
Yep. Okay, now WSP Whisper Curious. Sorry, I didn't. Well, when these words all run together, a little bit hard. Whisper Curious. Fantastic episode, gentlemen. As always, thank you, Blaine, for your debris search updates. Richard, and Jeffrey are very much appreciated. A question has come to mind after watching the episodes of the last few weeks. Given that there are countries and entities that know much more, is it possible a covert salvage of the wreckage site could have been undertaken over the past 11 years? If so, is it possible this could have gone undetected? While not a conspiracy theorist, I find it odd that countries would be silent about what they likely know regarding location. I don't think they would have revealed military secrets if they just said, look here, with no other specifics. Those poor families deserve better. Fortunately, they have you. Well, thank you for the lovely comment. But Blaine, I don't think there's been any covert operation.
No, I don't think there is either, and I have said that that is not possible, and that would have been detected, and there is no evidence at all that such an event occurred. And I concur that the families need answers, and thank you for your support in helping trying to get them.
Yeah, an operation like that, um, eventually something would leak out. That would be a major operation to do something like that, and there'd be a lot of people involved. And secrecy would be a nightmare. So I don't believe that for 1 minute. It is very unfortunate that some countries are not releasing information that they have, but they simply say national security is more important. So yeah, it's very sad. Steve Davis, 6358, Blaine. How can you be sure these bits of junk are from MH370 and not another aircraft, ship or yacht? Sorry, but you need to prove a definite link to that particular aircraft. Well, we really have done that, Steve, and I'll let Blaine explain.
Well, first of all, I take exception to your use of the word junk. You have not held a piece of this plane in your hands. Probably I have held about 22 of them in my hands, and they are not junk. They are pieces of an aircraft on which 239 people perished. When you hold them, you feel something about it emotionally, and I would not refer to it as junk. And that was why when I first found No Step, I, instead of just calling it debris, I thought that I should give it a name, and it had a name on it, No Step. So that's why I used the word No Step. Well, for one thing, there are 43 pieces of Malaysia 370 debris, 22 found and collected by me. 33 pieces of debris are in the Annex 13 report. 18 of those were found and collected by me, and 15 were found by other people completely unrelated to me. And they have been matched by matching serial numbers, matching part numbers, matching Malaysia Airlines stencil, chemical analysis of the paint, of the honeycomb, of the carbon fiber polymer, interior cabin debris distinctive to Malaysia Airlines that has the snail trail laminate, seat fabric unique to Malaysia Airlines, and they can identify precisely where on an aircraft the piece is from. Now, as far as the two that were released in the last video, those photos, I think they're from the plane. They need to be officially investigated to determine if they are, but the aluminum honeycomb is typical of a plane, not of a yacht. And it really looks, and I've shown pictures to people who are experts, and they think that that's from a Boeing 777. And we await on the other one, the Madagascar debris, to see if France has done an investigation and what those results are. And the only way to get the word out and to get the pictures and information out is to post and consult with you, viewers, and other experts about what these parts of the plane may be.
Yeah. And like you, Blaine, I have also handled aircraft wreckage. And that was the DC-10, Turkish Airlines DC-10 that was lost on March the 3rd, 1974, just outside Paris. I've been to the crash site. I've walked through the area that's been reforested, and there was debris everywhere. And when you pick it up and hold it, you get a chill. And I remember my wife, Christine, was with us, and she said, "Look what I've found." And I turned around to see, and she held up a shoe with a big platform heel. That was all the rage then in the 70s. These platform heels, big thing. And did we collect any? No way. We just put it back down on the ground. It was like a living memorial to, and we just shuddered at the debris that was left there. It's just, there was thousands of pieces still left in this forest. It was never properly cleaned up. And that plane did shatter. It absolutely shattered. although the undercarriage and the engines were still, intact. Um, but yes, it's certainly not junk. It's you hold it with reverence and you get a chill. So sorry, Steve, don't agree with your comment, but thank you for watching and commenting. Um, this one is also interesting from Les Bridden. Aluminium honeycomb is used a lot where you need to reduce weight, so it's used on cars, coaches, buses, boats, and planes. Yes, I agree with that. Where are the personal items? We're finding metal but no suitcases. Well, Blaine, I think suitcases are the last thing in the world that's going to float.
Well, I did find and spoke about this in one episode, some possible personal effects from the plane and handed those in. There was nothing that could be definitely matched to the plane. And we never received an official investigation on that. There were some possible matches from looking at the CCTV video, but nothing that could be confirmed. And uh, suitcases and handbags would not last long in the ocean, would not make a long journey in the ocean. So it's unlikely that Annie would wash ashore. It's possible some did. There was an episode where I answered a question and we showed some pictures of it.
Yep. So Jeff Daniel 814 in one of the comments to in the previous episode mention was made of a visit by Blaine to the Maldives as a result of an aircraft sighting there that looked like it could have been MH370. Has the aircraft that locals saw ever been identified? Do you want to answer that one, Blaine, or do you want me to answer that one?
Well, I will just say, I think we should both answer it. I'll just say that I went to the Maldives. I have total faith in the Maldives Kudahuvudu witnesses. They saw a large, low flying jet plane that they thought could be Malaysia 370. They were made fun of, they were mocked, they were accused of being liars, and one prominent journalist claimed that it was a Dash 8 propeller plane that they saw and came up with a flight that didn't exist, flew the wrong way the wrong day and didn't go anywhere near there. So I always believed that the Maldives witnesses saw a large, low flying jet plane, and they did. However, it appears that it was not Malaysia 370. That wouldn't fit the Inmarsat data at all. It appears that what they saw was a private jet, a Boeing 777-200 owned by the Saudi royal family that was in the Maldives at the time. It landed about an hour later at Malé Airport, and we didn't know about it because it was private. But it is more likely that they saw that plane than that they saw Malaysia 370, which crashed far away before the sighting occurred. Jeffrey, you can deal with the
Yeah,
rest.
yeah. In fact, one of the independent group, Don Thompson, discovered the fact that it was a Saudi 777 and it was flying low. So the young lad who saw it was absolutely right. It was a 777. It was flying low. And they were looking at properties to acquire in the Maldives. So it flew over a number of the islands in the Maldives chain. So, and as people would know, the Maldives is just north of Diego Garcia. So that's kind of possibly where that Diego Garcia thing comes from. I don't know. But yes, he positively identified it as a Saudi 777. So it was a genuine sighting, but it wasn't the Malaysian 777. Now, viewers, that's all we've got time for today. I'm sure Blaine will come back later in the week and answer more of your questions. We haven't worked out a day yet, but we will do that. And so, Blaine, thank you very much indeed for all your work on this today. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing to us. And if you haven't, please do. Please like us. Please keep those comments coming. We do appreciate it. And we really do appreciate all the supportive comments that you've given us. They're really wonderful, and it is much appreciated. So thank you, Blaine.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey, and thanks to all the viewers.